The room 2 talk information is in the chat for anyone interested, and I'd like to introduce in this room Laura Klein, from the U.S. Department of State MapGive initiative, to talk to us about cities and the COVID mitigation mapping.
Thank you, everyone, for the invitation today. And it's been really fascinating to be able to hear everyone's presentation, hear all the work that's going on in this sphere, and really happy to be able to share with you a brief segment of what ours is looking like. So I'm here as part of the U.S. State Department. I'm out of the Office of the Geographer, which is headed by the Geographer of the United States. And in particular, I'm here with the Humanitarian Information Unit, which some of you may have heard of. But we have had a MapGive initiative around for a few years now. And so in the spirit of the theme for this day, I wanted to share a brief mention of the history and our engagement throughout, but really provide that as the foundation for what we've been able to create here this summer and how we're looking to have some impact with participatory mapping. Let's see if that will move forward for me. So where we started, many of you may be aware, but maybe new for some. Back even before we had the MapGive program in around 2012, we recognized that there were opportunities for sharing some of the unique resources that the US government had access to for creating new networks and partnering with key partners on the ground, such as HOT, GFDRR, and others that were starting out, or that were starting to engage in this sort of work back in 2012. We started with our Imagery to the Crowd program, which was sharing high resolution commercial imagery under the US government license to enable humanitarian mapping and development mapping. As we moved into 2014, we recognized that there was an opportunity for us to innovate and to kind of enable and mobilize some of our networks and our colleagues to get interested in participatory mapping, in volunteer mapping, remote mapping in OpenStreetMap using the HOT Tasking Manager. And we were able to create our MapGive network about 2014. And then when 2015 came along, that's about the time I was able to join the team. And so we started focusing on ways in which we could work beyond the remote. We recognized we had a unique position where we could partner with our colleagues at the US embassies, and we could work to build partnerships. We called them our Secondary Cities Initiative at the time. We built partnerships on the ground in communities that were rapidly developing and which really had a need for data, open data, to support their resilience, sustainability, emergency preparedness, other topics that were of interest to their community. So these partnerships and this model for participatory mapping is what we're still applying here today and with our C2M2 program. We work with communities and groups of either local academics or NGOs usually lead our programs. We're working with local municipal governments as partners, and then also some way of representing the community, whether it's a community civil organization or other networks and groups, so that we really have the initial buy-in from the local community to understand which topics they're interested in and how we can help enhance some of the geospatial capability in their communities in the developing world to be able to create open map data and other open geospatial projects that of course are within, are shareable within, ethics considerations and other reasons. But to use this mapping model to help them build data sets. We worked with 16 different communities during the Secondary Cities program, which ran from 2015 to 2019. And we thought that this model had such an impact on the variety of topics that they focused on, whether it was local flooding, whether it was mapping vulnerable neighborhoods, usually informal neighborhoods that settled in high hazard areas, or mapping for waste management or public security and safety. And so we thought that this model and this set of resources that we developed and this tremendous set of partners that we had worked with in these 16 places around the world We recognized then here as COVID was beginning, and back at the end of May, there was an opportunity opportunity to be able to work with U.S. government resources and try and figure out ways to mitigate COVID second order impacts. And so what we were looking to do then was to leverage this partner in these networks. So we're developing 3 regional hubs, 1 each in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. In the present here, on this slide, we're looking at developing and creating standard operating procedures around different data analysis techniques that can help these communities and these partnerships that we're creating on the ground to mitigate their own second order impacts, and looking at the digital maps and other ways of addressing this and really helping data-driven decision making at the local level. So here you see this 12 locations where we're working now. Our projects all just got started here this fall. We're starting in with data here, data creation here shortly, and kind of moving beyond the partnerships piece of it. This I wanted to share with this group because I really think that this group of practitioners here will truly understand and appreciate, as I think many of us are trying to figure out how COVID is impacting our work and our mapping work. I wanted to share this as one of the tools that we're using, and this causal loop diagram methodology to look at the system and to try and understand where we need to look at data and where we need to look at geospatial analysis to try and understand and make a difference and really apply these things at the local level. So just starting on the left, top left, you see the number of COVID cases. When those increase, that increases the economic lockdown, decreases economic activity, increases in unemployment, and kind of moves through the cycle. And we can do that for any number of systems. And we have tried to structure our understanding in this way a bit so that then we can start to pick out, okay, economic activity, what sort of data sets can we look at around economic activity? So breaking that down just one step further, and this is my last slide here, but just to show you briefly how we're starting our geospatial assessment and where we're getting started with. Of course, as I mentioned, we're focused on vulnerable populations in urban areas. We are looking at those second order impacts. We understand that, of course, folks with the first order impacts and those directly impacted by COVID are reeling from health effects, but we also understand that these economic impacts, food security, the unprecedented urban to rural migration that's taking place is really also having a tremendous impact. And I've seen studies that say it will continue for decades. So it really has a huge impact in these communities, and we're hoping to help develop mitigation strategies and others. All of our data, to the extent possible, all of our data analyses and products, we're looking to and encouraging our partners to share openly and publicly so that this can help the community most broadly apply these and build these. Again, as I mentioned, of course, considering ethics. And so we're really looking forward to this program. It's going to take place over the next year or so in these locations, and would love to speak more with anybody who has any questions or has any other topics and comments they'd like to bring forward. Our mapgive.state.gov website will be where in the new year we'll have our C2M2 cities COVID mitigation mapping program pages up there as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Laura, for a wonderful talk. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker.